The first time my wife lied cleanly enough to smile afterward, my phone lit up with a hotel's international switchboard asking if I authorized the gentleman in the room. I didn't answer at first. Not because I was asleep, I wasn't, but because the number on the screen looked like a mistake made by a machine. Too many digits. Too many pauses. A country code I couldn't place without thinking. The kind of call that arrives when someone's trying to sell you a miracle cure or announce that you've inherited a castle from a stranger. My living room was dim, lit by the bluish haze of the television I'd left on mute and the lamp over the dining table where I'd been grading essays. The house smelled like cooling tea and the lemon cleaner I used when I couldn't control anything else. My wife, Mira, had been gone for 4 days. A reset, she'd called it. A short break with coworkers from the clinic, sun, salt water, no schedules, no patients calling in crisis. She'd said it lightly, like a person picking a sweater from a closet. But the way she'd said it had snagged something in me. Not the trip itself. Not even the destination. It was the choreography, the kiss on my forehead that didn't linger, the quick talk about how spotty the reception would be, the way her eyes skated past mine when I offered to drive her to the airport. She used to let me look at her when she was leaving. She used to stand still long enough for the moment to mean something. That was the first thread. I told myself it was nothing. The call rang again. I picked up on the third ring, because I've spent my adult life believing that ignoring problems doesn't make them smaller, it just lets them grow teeth in the dark. Hello. A faint crackle, as if someone had rubbed fabric against a microphone. Then a man's voice, careful and trained. Mr. Callahan Reyes. My name sounded wrong in his mouth, like a label peeled from something it didn't belong on. Yes. Sir, this is Marcel Varga, guest services. Lumen Crest Resort. I apologize for the hour. We have a matter that requires confirmation. My chest tightened. Not fear yet. A physical narrowing, like a gate starting to swing shut. Confirmation of what? I asked. He hesitated, not long, but long enough for the air between us to fill with implications. It concerns the folio for Suite 914, he said. The reservation is associated with a card ending in, he recited the last 4 digits. My card. The one connected to the account Mira and I had opened together after our wedding, because we'd promised each other transparency like it was a charm against all future harm. Marcel continued, voice gentle as expensive fabric. We attempted a routine authorization this evening. The transaction was declined. There is another pause, like he was selecting words that wouldn't explode. A guest in the suite who is not listed on the reservation. He is requesting that we speak with you directly. My hearing sharpened. I could suddenly hear the refrigerator's low hum, the tick of the kitchen clock, the distant rush of cars on wet pavement outside. A guest. I repeated. Yes, sir. Marcel's tone stayed polished. Do you recognize a Mr. Dorian Kells? The name landed like ice water down my spine. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the TV screen, where a silent news anchor's mouth moved without sound. A banner crawled along the bottom with headlines that felt unrelated to the shape my life was taking. Dorian Kells. I knew that name the way you know the name of a scar. You don't touch it often, but your body remembers it anyway. Dorian was Myra's before, the men she'd dated through most of her 20s, the one she'd called a lesson when she explained him to me in our early days of honesty. He had a face I'd only seen in photos, sharp smile, eyes too amused, hair always slightly disheveled as if he'd stepped out of a good decision and lived to tell the story. Mira had sworn there was nothing left. No contact. No thread. And maybe there wasn't, until now. Marcel cleared his throat softly. Sir. I forced air into my lungs. Yes, I said, and my voice surprised me by not shaking. I know who that is. There was a careful exhale on the other end, as if he'd been waiting for my denial and didn't know what to do with my certainty. Thank you, Marcel said. May I ask, are you aware that your wife, Mrs. Mira Reyes, is currently in the suite with him? My wife's name, spoken by a stranger in the middle of the night, made my stomach go cold. I sat down slowly at the dining table, phone pressed tight to my ear, eyes drifting to my laptop. It was open. It had been open for hours. Because I'd been doing something I never used to do, looking for my wife in places she wasn't offering herself to me. The screen showed a photo someone else had posted publicly. Not Mira. Not her clinic friends. Dorian. It was a bright, sunlit image of a rooftop infinity pool. In it, Mira wore a wide-brimmed straw hat I'd never seen and sunglasses that reflected the sky. Dorian's arm was around her shoulder as if it belonged there. She leaned into him with that relaxed trust people have only when they're not performing. The caption was worse than the picture, back where it started. Some stories don't end, they just wait. He tagged the location. He tagged her. And she'd let it happen. I'd stared at that photo earlier and felt something inside me go still, not numb, not dead, just finished with denial. Like a door quietly clicking shut. Yes, I said into the phone, because lying to the hotel wouldn't change what I already knew. I'm aware he's with her. Marcel's voice softened. Sir, do you understand the implications? There is a question of financial responsibility and, given the circumstances, guest safety. We have a policy. I understand, I said. What do you need from me? He paused again. The gentleman is requesting that the declined authorization be corrected immediately. Otherwise the suite will require settlement of outstanding charges before further services are provided. Additionally, he has mentioned, Marcel's professionalism tightened. That you may be interfering intentionally. Interfering. The word almost made me laugh. Because yes, I had interfered. Not with violence. Not with threats. With the only tool I trusted to stay clean, paperwork. But Marcel didn't know that yet. He didn't know what I'd done after I found the photo. He didn't know I'd done it hours before his call. I'm not interfering, I said, letting the sentence sit with all its precise meaning. I'm securing my accounts. There was a silence long enough for me to hear my own breathing. I see, Marcel said slowly. May I speak to my wife? I asked. Marcel hesitated. Of course, sir. One moment. Soft hold music, something smooth and inoffensive, like a piano trying not to intrude on catastrophe. While I waited, my mind slid backward through the last 4 days, gathering the crumbs I'd ignored. The first day, Mira had texted me a selfie from a balcony, ocean behind her, hair loose, smile careful. We made it, she wrote. It's gorgeous. No mention of the coworkers. No names, no faces in the background. Just her. I'd replied with enthusiasm because that's what you do when your wife says she's gorgeous somewhere. You reinforce the happiness. You don't interrogate it. But then, later that evening, she didn't answer my call. She texted back, reception is awful. I'll call tomorrow. The next day, she sent another photo, a drink with a paper umbrella, her manicured fingers visible at the edge. Cheers, she wrote. Again, no friends. No evidence of a group. No laughter in the margins. I told myself maybe her co-workers didn't like being photographed. Maybe they were shy. Maybe she was being present, not glued to her phone. I told myself all the gentle narratives that keep a marriage comfortable. Then I noticed something. The reflection in the curved metal of her spoon. A shape behind her. A man's shoulder. A dark shirt. It was ridiculous, the way my brain latched onto that sliver. But once you notice a lie, you start seeing the geometry of it everywhere. That night I opened our shared banking app, not out of suspicion, I told myself, but because I handle bills. I pay the mortgage. I keep us floating. Mira liked to say I was her stability, and I'd worn the title like a medal. The charges were there like footprints, private transfers to a resort, upscale meals charged twice, a couple's massage package, a sunset charter for two. Not girls' trip, not clinic getaway. 2. And none of it was subtle. It wasn't hidden behind cash withdrawals or vague merchant names. It was bold. As if she believed the numbers didn't matter, or as if she believed I'd never look. That had hurt more than the suspected sex. Because sex is messy and human. Disrespect is a decision. I didn't react in the way movies teach you to react. I didn't throw a vase or call her screaming. I didn't send paragraphs of accusation. I went quiet. I gathered documentation. I called the bank's fraud department and described the situation as unrecognized international activity on a joint account. I was careful with language, truthful, but framed in the vocabulary that triggers protocols. I confirmed my identity. I asked for an immediate lock on joint card usage outside domestic transactions until I could review. Then I called the credit issuer and requested a temporary suspension on the travel card linked to our joint line, again citing suspicious activity abroad. Then I updated my digital wallet to remove my card from any shared cloud access, changed my passwords, and set two-factor authentication to my own device. I didn't touch Myra's personal account. I wasn't trying to starve her. I was trying to stop funding a betrayal. And then, because my body had been running on anxiety for months without my permission, I slept. When I woke up, the first text was from Mira, "My card won't work." "What did you do?" I didn't answer. I wanted the truth to meet her without me cushioning it. Now, on hold music, with a hotel calling me at 2 a.m., I realized what my silence had done. It had forced the consequences to show up in a third party's voice. The music clicked off. "Mr. Reyes." Marcel returned. "Mrs. Reyes is," he lowered his voice slightly, "unavailable at the moment. The gentleman is here. Would you like to speak with him?" My mouth went dry. Part of me wanted to say no, to deny Dorian the dignity of my attention. Another part of me wanted to hear how he would frame himself, what story he'd try to sell. "Yes," I said. "Put him on." A soft shuffle, as if the phone was being handed across a room. Then Dorian's voice filled my ear, warm, amused, as if we were two men meeting at a bar instead of at the edge of my marriage. "Callahan," he said. "Wow. Didn't think you'd pick up." There are certain tones that are insults even before the words arrive. His was one of them. "What do you want?" I asked. He chuckled softly. "Straight to it." "I respect that. Listen, there's been a glitch. The card got declined." Myra's stressed. "This isn't the time for whatever this is." "This," I said, keeping my voice steady, "is you calling me from a hotel room you're sharing with my wife." A pause. Not guilt. Calculation. "She's an adult," he said finally, like it was a philosophy. We ran into each other. Things happened. "You don't own her." I almost admired the audacity, the way he slid moral language over the mess like a sheet. "I'm not claiming ownership," I said. "I'm claiming my money." He laughed again, sharper. "Come on, man. Don't be petty." Petty. Another word that tries to shrink betrayal into a personality flaw in the person refusing it. "You can pay for your own room," I said. "Or she can." A beat. "You froze her access," Dorian said, and the warmth in his voice thinned. "You realize that's abusive, right? Financial control. You're trapping her here." I let the silence sit, because I wanted him to hear how little his framing moved me. "She's not trapped," I said. "She's on vacation. With you. In a suite you chose. In a resort you tagged publicly." A faint sound in the background, Myra's voice, muffled, saying something urgent I couldn't make out. Dorian lowered his voice. "Look, the resort is threatening to cut services. It's embarrassing. Just fix it. Handle it like a grown man." There it was. The assumption. The expectation that I would step into the role they'd assigned me, provider, cleaner, eraser of consequences. I pictured Myra's straw hat, the way she leaned into his arm. I pictured the couple's massage charge. I pictured the way she'd kissed me goodbye without meeting my eyes. I felt, again, that stillness. Not rage. Not despair. The quiet click of a choice made. "I am handling it," I said. And then I said the only sentence I would send into that room, because it contained the lesson in a way neither of them could misinterpret. "Ask the men you came back to." Dorian exhaled sharply, as if I'd hit him. "You're really doing this?" "Yes," I said. He started to speak again, insults, likely, or threats. I didn't give him the stage. I hung up. For a moment the room around me was too quiet, like even the aquarium filter had stopped. Then my phone buzzed. Mira, again. Mira, call me. Please. Then. Mira, this is scary. They're saying we can't leave without paying. We. I stared at that pronoun until it blurred. I didn't reply. I waited. Because the hardest part of betrayal isn't the act. It's the gaslighting afterward, the attempt to keep you inside a story where you are unreasonable for reacting. If I answered too soon, I'd be dragged into her narrative. I'd be asked to soothe, to rescue, to compromise my boundaries for the sake of peace. Peace built on my denial isn't peace. It's anesthesia. An hour later, another text. Mira, I messed up. I know. But you can't do this. I still didn't answer. At dawn I got an email from an unfamiliar address with an official-looking signature block, Consular Services Liaison, U.S. Mission, Regional Support Office. The subject line made my stomach tighten, assistance request, reported financial abandonment overseas. They'd escalated. Of course they had. When people who are used to being protected hit a wall, they call institutions to make the wall move. The email was brief and careful. It asked me to call a number for clarification. It framed the situation in neutral terms, but the implication was clear. My wife had reported that I'd cut her off and left her vulnerable in a foreign country. I stared at the email for a long time. The sky outside was pale. Birds argued in the maple tree near my driveway. The world kept moving, indifferent to my private disaster. Then I dialed. A woman answered, voice clipped and professional. Consular Liaison Desk. I gave my name. She confirmed my identity. Mr. Reyes, she said, we've received a report from your spouse. She is requesting assistance. She states that you have intentionally cancelled her access to funds while she is abroad, leaving her unable to secure lodging or travel. I closed my eyes. Mira had chosen her language carefully. Not, my husband found out I'm cheating. Not, I used our money to take my ex-lover on a trip. No, she'd framed it as abandonment, as cruelty, as danger. The woman continued, softer now. Sir, do you understand who is now involved? I opened my eyes and looked at my kitchen table, where my mug sat half full of cold tea. I thought of the way Mira loved to say she hated drama. I thought of the way she'd built this drama like a stage when it suited her. Yes, I said calmly. I understand. Are you willing to restore her access? The liaison asked. We are concerned about her immediate safety. Has she mentioned why she's there? I asked. A pause. Paper shuffling. She indicated she was traveling recreationally, the woman said. A trip with friends. Friends. I felt something like a laugh rise and die in my throat. No, I said. She's traveling with her former partner. I have documentation that she used joint funds to pay for his accommodations and services. Silence. I could almost hear the liaison's mental gears shifting, the way a trained professional reevaluates when new facts change the moral calculus. I can forward documentation, I added. Bank statements. Screenshots of public posts. Charges indicating two-person services. Another pause, longer. The tone on the other end cooled, became more procedural. I see, she said finally. If you can provide evidence that joint funds were used in a manner outside agreed-upon use and that there is no immediate threat to her physical safety, our role is limited. We can provide her with information on local resources, but we cannot compel you to fund personal travel disputes. Personal travel disputes. The phrase was almost elegant in its dismissal. Thank you, I said. Please note that I am not preventing her from contacting me or returning home. I am only refusing to finance unauthorized activity. I will note that, the liaison said. She may still require assistance with travel arrangements. We can advise her on options. Of course, I said. We ended the call. I sat there for a long moment, hands flat on the table, feeling the strange weightless heaviness that comes when an external authority confirms you are not crazy. Not vindicated, just, not insane. The rest of the day moved like syrup. I went to work. I stood in front of students and talked about narrative structure, how stories are built on choices, how characters reveal themselves under pressure. My voice sounded normal. My hands didn't shake. I even laughed once when a student made a joke. Inside, something had gone quiet and sharp. When I got home, Mira had left 12 voicemails. In the first she was furious, calling me childish, cruel, accusing me of punishing her. In the next she sobbed. In the next she begged. In the next she used my mother's name, as if invoking family could erase betrayal. The last voicemail was different. Her voice was small. "Callahan," she whispered, "I think I made a mistake. I think I don't know what I'm doing. Please. I just want to come home." I listened to it twice, not because it changed my mind, but because it showed me something. Consequences had finally reached her. Not my anger. Not my words. Consequences. 2 days later, I got a message from an airline app one didn't recognize. A notification that someone had attempted to book a last-minute flight using my card. Declined. Then a text from Mira. "Mira, I'm getting on a flight tomorrow. I'm paying with my own money. Please don't lock everything." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The boundary had already been drawn. The day she came home, the sky was bright in that cruel way it gets after rain, clean, sharp, as if the world had been polished. I heard the front door open in the early afternoon. I was in the living room, sitting on the couch, not watching the TV this time. Just waiting. Her suitcase wheels clicked over the threshold. Then her footsteps, slow, cautious, as if the house might bite. Mira stepped into the room like someone entering a courtroom. She looked different. Not dramatically different, no haircut, no bruises, no movie-style wreckage. Just altered. Her skin was a shade duller, her eyes tired, her shoulders pulled tight. She set the suitcase down and stood with her hands at her sides, as if unsure what to do with them. "Hi," she said. I didn't answer right away. Not as punishment. Because I needed to choose my words the way you choose where to place your feet on ice. "Hi," I said finally. Her throat bobbed. She swallowed. "I know how this looks." "It looks like what it is," I said. She flinched. "I didn't plan it," she said quickly. "I swear I didn't. I ran into Dorian at the airport. It was random. And then, he was just there. And I felt," she shook her head, frustrated with herself. "I felt something familiar, and I thought maybe I needed to see if it meant anything." Her words came out in a rush, like she could outrun the consequences if she talked fast enough. "And using our money?" I asked. Her eyes dropped. "I didn't think. My card was already on file. I wasn't thinking about the details." The details. My life. Our life. I stood up and walked to the dining table. On it was a folder I'd prepared, heavy with paper. I'd printed everything, not to gloat, but because truth is easier to hold when it has edges. Mira watched me like she expected a scream. I returned and handed her the folder. "What's this?" she whispered. "Reality," I said. She opened it. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages. Charges. Dates. Amounts. The resort folio. The two-person services. The attempted flight booking. Screenshots of Dorian's public post, including the caption. Her face drained slowly, like color leaving a photograph exposed too long to sunlight. "I was going to tell you," she said, voice breaking. I nodded once. "I know." That answer, calm, simple, seemed to hurt her more than yelling would have. Because it meant I'd already passed the point where her story could change mine. She looked up, tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you fight?" I felt something shift in my chest, not anger, not softness. Just exhaustion. "Because I did fight," I said quietly. I fought the part of me that wanted to pretend. I fought the urge to bargain with my own dignity. I fought the habit of cleaning up your choices. Mira stepped closer. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It didn't mean. It meant you chose him," I said. "It meant you chose to lie to me. It meant you chose to use what we built to fund something that would break it." She pressed a hand to her mouth, as if to keep herself from making a sound. I looked at her, really looked. This woman I'd loved, the woman I'd promised a life to, the woman who'd once cried with happiness when we signed the papers on this house. I'm not going to destroy you, I said. I'm not going to smear you. I'm not going to scream so you can call me unstable. Her eyes widened, like she understood exactly what I meant. But I am going to stop being your safety net, I continued. I'm done financing my own betrayal. Myra's shoulders shook. What are you saying? I took a breath. I've already moved half of the joint savings into an account only I can access, I said, voice even. The remaining shared funds will cover the legal and administrative costs of separating our finances. The words sounded clinical, but they were the cleanest way to say what my heart had already accepted. Mira stared at me as if I'd spoken a foreign language. You already, her voice cracked. You already decided? Yes, I said. She sank onto the couch like her bones had been removed. So that's it, she whispered. You're just done. I felt the ache then, not sharp, but deep. Like a bruise you don't notice until someone touches it. I didn't end this in a hotel suite, I said softly. You did. Mira covered her face with her hands. Her sobs were quiet at first, then stronger. She sounded like grief, not like performance. I stood there and let her cry. Not because I was cruel. Because comfort from me would have been another kind of lie. After a while she lowered her hands and looked at me, eyes red. I thought you wouldn't find out, she admitted, voice raw. And there it was, the simplest truth, stripped of romance and excuses. You thought I was stupid, I said. She flinched as if I'd struck her. No, Callahan, Yes, I said, and my voice stayed gentle but firm. You did. You thought you could live 2 stories and I'd keep paying for both. Mira opened her mouth. Then closed it. She seemed to realize, finally, that there was no sentence she could say that would restore the version of me who would fix this for her. The house was quiet except for the clock. Outside, a neighbor's lawn mower started up, ordinary and absurd. Mira wiped her cheeks with her sleeve. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. The question wasn't dramatic. It was practical. It was the first truly honest thing she'd asked since she'd left. You can stay in the guest room tonight, I said. Tomorrow we'll talk about logistics. But Mira, I paused until she met my eyes. This marriage, as it was, is over. Her lips trembled. She nodded once, a tiny motion that looked like surrender. She stood, picked up her suitcase, and walked down the hallway. Her footsteps were slow, measured, as if each one was a concession to reality. When the guest room door closed, I sat back down on the couch and stared at nothing. I expected triumph. I expected relief. I expected rage. What I felt was something quieter, a sense of inevitability settling into place, like a story reaching its final paragraph exactly where it always had to. I thought about the consular liaison's voice, professional, cool, saying personal travel disputes. I thought about Marcel's careful phrasing, the gentleman in the room. I thought about Dorian's laugh, Myra's pronoun, we. I'd spent years believing loyalty meant absorbing discomfort for the sake of love. That being a good husband meant being endlessly flexible, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's consent to be used. In the days that followed, the practical work began, separate accounts, separate bills, a quiet meeting with a lawyer recommended by a colleague. There were no screaming matches. No dramatic scene on the lawn. Just paperwork, signatures, the slow dismantling of a life that had already been punctured. Mira tried to talk sometimes, late at night, in the hallway, voice soft with regret. She offered therapy, vows, promises that sounded beautiful in the abstract. I listened when it mattered. I spoke when it mattered. But I didn't go back. Because the betrayal wasn't a single night. It was a decision stacked on a decision, to lie, to involve someone else, to use our shared resources as if my trust were an endless account that could never hit zero. And when she realized I wouldn't rescue her, something in her changed too. Not into a villain, not into a saint, just into a person who finally had to feel the weight of her own choices without my hands underneath. On the last day she came to collect the rest of her things, she stood in the doorway of the living room and looked at me with a face that seemed older than her years. I didn't think you had this in you, she said quietly. I didn't ask what she meant. I knew. The ability to stop. The ability to let consequences be the teacher instead of me. I didn't either, I said. She nodded, as if that answer was both a relief and a grief. Then she left. When the door closed, the house didn't echo with drama. It simply became quiet, my quiet, not the quiet of avoidance, but the quiet of a life no longer built around managing someone else's lies. I walked to the kitchen, poured fresh tea, and watched steam rise in thin, honest strands. Outside, the day moved on. Inside, so did I. Because the lesson was brutal in its simplicity, and it was the only ending that made moral sense of everything that came before. If someone chooses another story, you don't have to bankroll it just to prove you're kind. You can be calm. You can be fair. And you can still close the account.